I know. Thank you so much for having me. This has been, I didn't really know what I was going to be getting into a couple of months ago when I first spoke with Scott and Jeff about this, but just kind of reflecting on the morning session and being able to really understand some of the businesses and to be able to understand the employees as well too. We talk a lot about culture at NASDAQ, the company that I work for, and I've been so impressed to understand kind of the employee-driven culture around the values of family, trust, integrity, loyalty, and it's been an absolute privilege to be partaking in this so far, and really excited to kind of hopefully be able to share some insights. Maybe this is a refresher for some of you, maybe there's some new nuggets of information, but nevertheless, I'm excited to kind of go in to this today. I really want this to be interactive, so if anyone has any questions or wants to pipe up, I am going to kind of call on some people and ask some open-ended questions as well too, so feel free to pipe up. I'm going to try something. I want you to get your phones out, and I want you all to take a picture of the QR code. I hope this works. Take a picture of the QR code, and you're going to be prompted for one word, but if you could put in a couple of words, that would be very helpful. So the question is, when you think about building relationships, what 3 words come to mind? And I'll give you a minute to start putting them in. I even want my buddy Bill Richard over there to participate if he doesn't mind, but so we're going to start seeing some words pop up here, and we'll start seeing some common themes. And the reason I thought it was be kind of an interesting way to start is I think that we've, at least what I heard in the first sessions from the other businesses, these are kind of core tenets to both kind of the ethos of these businesses, but then also I really believe that these are core tenets in building meaningful relationships as well too. So I think some of the ones that are coming up big, obviously trust, time, being friendly, being able to effectively communicate. All of these are extremely core tenets to building and developing meaningful relationships. So I'm happy that worked out pretty well. We'll deactivate, and we'll go back. And we'll go here. All right.
That's cool.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So I'm glad that worked. So just a little bit about my background. Grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Childhood friends with Brennan, John, Scott, Seth, who was here earlier. From the time that I was probably 12 or 13 years old, I've always been in some type of a sales capacity. When I was like 12 and 13, started trying to get my own lawn mowing business off the ground, mowing the neighbor's yard, my parents' yard, some other ones as well. I was always trying to sell something. In middle school, we had like candy bar drives to like raise money for the school. And, I was always pretty good at going from door to door and knocking on friends and family and drumming up business that way. In high school, one of the things that we did as far as our basketball program at Memorial High School was we would sell advertisement space in the gymnasium to give small businesses a little bit of recognition and some exposure. And that is the only reason that I was on the freshman basketball team, because I was pretty good at selling then. And was in the restaurant business for many years. Met my beautiful wife in the restaurant business in New York back in 2008. So I was selling food there, and went to the University of South Carolina for undergrad. Go Gamecocks! Moved up to New York in 2010 and was. I've been working for NASDAQ ever since in some type of a client-facing sales role. But I think at the core of all of these roles, there was one thing. It was being able to create and build meaningful relationships. Okay, so just quickly, a show of hands in the room. I want everyone to participate here. Who here is in some type of a relationship, be it a romantic relationship, a friendly relationship, maybe you at work, you are trying to build relationships with other people, whether that's for your job or just in the office. Anyone here in that role doing that? There we go. Every single one of us is trying to build meaningful relationships all the time. We are all building relationships, and every single one of us is in sales in some capacity. I think that's like my biggest goal here is like all of us in some capacity are in sales, and if we can kind of look at it through that lens, I think that we'll have a fun time here today. So, kind of kicking this off, I think so. The way that I'm hoping that this kind of goes is the first part of this is going to be really around the beginning of a sale, kind of introducing yourself for the first time that you went into that restaurant, the first time that you went into that bar, maybe the first time a customer came into the meat, into one of the meat companies, maybe the first time you're approaching one of your elevator prospects about the service that you provide. That first 60 to 90 seconds is absolutely the most important, the most important time. And there's no reason to be like doing your hard pitch at that point. It really is about kind of beginning to build that trust, that relationship, and really showcasing yourself as opposed to your product, and really kind of being that trusted advisor to the prospect and the customer. One of the questions that I really had to ask myself kind of early in my career is, am I prepared going into this customer? Am I anticipating their pain points? Have I done my research? Do I if it's an Iceworks, and I've started kind of thinking about this as well too, because I am interested in opening up Pennsylvania Iceworks. Being able to go into that restaurant, do they have other establishments? Are they connected in the community in a meaningful way? Do I know if they already have some type of a core solution in-house, etc.? And so I think, for me, one thing I want to really communicate on this slide is, taking the sales role very seriously and being able to understand, you have this kind of one shot in the beginning to really begin to create a rapport and a relationship with this customer. Are you maximizing the value? Are you really focused on that? So I'd just be interested if anyone in this room has any examples that they'd like to share about how either they have not been prepared before, or if they have been prepared, what did you learn from that, etc. Brendan, I saw you raise your hand.
I'll just say early on.
In there, you haven't done your research or prepared. Any other examples anyone would like to share of either a success of when you were prepared and how you were able to be successful, or something you learned of not being prepared? Go ahead.
I would say like we talked about earlier, being solution oriented, and you know what, if you don't know the answer, say, hey, I can find that out, give me till the end of the day or tomorrow. And most of the time, folks are just finding that answer and following up and following through when the bar is set pretty low by your competition.
Yeah,
it's definitely sets you apart.
It's so interesting. I remember when I first started my sales role at NASDAQ, I was selling data from like the stock exchange. I had no idea what I was doing, and I remember I would get these questions from like these big financial services firms, the Morgan Stanleys and the Bank of Americas of the world. They'd be asking me these questions, and I'd be like, and I would just, I would kind of freeze up, and I wouldn't feel confident. But having the ability to say, I don't know the answer. I don't know what you said earlier, but I don't know the answer, but I'm gonna get back to you. Talk about establishing trust and confidence in that relationship. That I think that's so valuable to be able to just go out of your way to be like, I don't know the answer, but I am that guy for you.
To piggyback on that,
yeah.
Two questions that, Josh, do you remember the two questions?
I can help you with that, and I will get back to you at X.
Brilliant, that is
Yeah,
exactly.
I can help you with that,
Yes,
okay? Because people want their problems to be solved, right?
yep,
We're their problem solver. And then, I will get back to you by the end of the day, or I'll get back to you in 2 hours, or
Totally.
the next morning. And if you promise something, you better follow up on it,
yep,
right?
yep,
And people respect that.
absolutely.
They truly, a great example that we had recently about being unprepared, we were having dinner at a restaurant in Albuquerque, and, it was a nice dinner, and, this lady keeps on swinging back and forth and back and forth.
Moving on, confidence. So I think that confidence. I had such a false sense of confidence in the beginning of my sales career, because I feel that I'm a confident person and I can present well or can be articulate in front of a customer. But I really think that confidence comes from being told no, and being we're not interested right now. And I think that's the difference between a great sales guy or gal versus maybe not as great as a sales guy or gal, because no may mean just today, and it doesn't mean no forever. And I have a story. One of my before I worked at NASDAQ, it was January of 2010, and I was living in Port Washington, New York, which is on the North Shore of Long Island, about 30 minutes east of Manhattan, New York City, and I was selling office supplies door to door. It was soul destroying, and it was the coldest winter on record, and literally going door to door, cold calling. And there was this kind of one block by the train station. It was all law offices, and I had a little bit of success with a couple of them. I was able to flog some reams of paper and some pencils. I made no money. It was terrible. But I went into this one office, and it was like a nicer office. I'm like, that's the money office right there. And I walk in there. I walk up the stairs. The secretary's right there, and I knew that the owner's name was Jim, and the head lawyer or whatever. So I'm like, I'm here to see Jim. She's like, okay, great. Do you have an appointment? And I'm like, no. She's like, okay. And so I'm sitting there, just this miserable suit, and just like very nervous. And Jim starts walking towards me. Italian guy, Brooklyn accent. He's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Devin, sir. Nice to meet you. What are you here to do? I was like, I've been going to some of your peers on the block, and we've got some great office supplies that I'd like to talk to you about. Office supplies. And he's like, and he literally tells me, get the out of my office. And I remember being just crestfallen, I remember walking down the stairs and I was so upset. I was a month out of college. It was so cold outside. I was like, it was like a low point for me. I remember calling my dad. So some of the folks in here know my dad well. My dad was in sales for 40 years, and he is like the ultimate salesman. And so I call him, and I probably was crying. And I told him what happened, and he starts laughing, and he's like, you have to go back in there. You have to go back in there. You need to do this for yourself, and you need to show this guy that you're not, that you have to start to build some armor, Devin. You have to build some mental toughness. So I'm like, oh my God, go back in there. So I waited a day, and I called, and I set up an appointment. She's like, okay. And I was like, I just want 15 minutes. And so I walked back up the stairs, and the next day, and Jim comes out, and he kind of has a stern look, kind of beside himself that I would come back, and puts this huge smile on. He's like, all right, Devin, come on back. So I was able to flog him some toners and some ink cartridges and a couple of printers. And I think I made a sale of $300, and of which I made 20%. But it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about building up kind of that callus and that thick skin of confidence is something that doesn't manufacture itself out of thin air. I really do believe that have to be told no. You have to be told, and you have to be able to kind of understand that just means no today, and that doesn't mean no forever. And then also, I think the last thing I'll say about confidence is, it's not something that is just going to happen. It takes repetition. Sales is really a game of numbers, and it's not going to happen in the beginning. And I think I'm still kind of working on my confidence to be honest with you. But is anyone here in the room have any stories that they'd like to share? Just about just bring up a story. I was. My territory for a long time was the East Coast, and because I'm from Oklahoma, they gave me Kansas and Texas, and a couple of other, and Missouri as well too. So I had a couple of customers in Houston, a couple of customers in Austin, and I remember the first time that I went to Houston, same thing. I was buttoned up, jacket, tie, everything, and I went into the office, and they were kind of dressed a little bit more kind of like casually, like I see here in New Mexico, boots and jeans and everything. And the guy, he took me aside, he's like, listen, I know this is your first time coming in the office. He's like, you come in here again, like looking all Wall Street. He's like, we won't meet with you. And I was like, well, I really appreciate that, Brad. And he's like, come on in, we'll have you this time, but like, just know, like, you don't come in here with a suit and tie. But it's also just goes back to like being prepared. And
Well, yeah, know your product, but also know your customer.
Absolutely.
Two stones.
Yep. So I think, so we kind of talked about in the beginning, that first 60 to 90 seconds, we talked about confidence. And then, my goal here of kind of talking about leveraging your relationships, this is really more about, I hope this is really germane to not just Iceworks, not Liftworks, but Ottomans and Meat Cleaver as well too, because I think, once you've made the sale, or once you've kind of inherited that book of business, it's really all about leveraging those relationships after that, and like the multiplier effect. I was talking to Nate yesterday. He was so kind to pick up my wife and I from the airport. Appreciate that. But we had some quality time in the car together, and he was talking about these relationships that he has with some of these HVAC companies, and how these HVAC companies are actually a lead generator for his business, and how I remember thinking like, damn, that's pretty sweet. But being at like these HVAC companies are incentivized to get more business, and if they're going to service these ice machines, that you're like, what a great way to be able to leverage a relationship in order to like get that multiplier effect. And I think that this all goes back to kind of some of the core tenets that you guys have instilled in these companies around trust, integrity, loyalty. I mean, that's how you're going to be able to leverage relationships and get that multiplier effect. I had a couple of great kind of massive sales went out in like 2015, 2016, the type of sales that kind of like make your year. I haven't had one of those since then, but and I remember the sale came in because of the relationship that I had built, and the relation that was built prior to me as well too. It wasn't just me. There was a great relationship that I had inherited, and it was with Wells Fargo, and out of their St. Louis office for their Wells Fargo advisory business unit. It's like 15,000 advisors. They all leverage this one technology platform for financial advisory. And was in there, flogging this data product for a while, but they always just kind of didn't seem like they were really interested. And I remember I was in Chicago one day, and it was like January 2016, and I got a call from the woman who ran procurement for all of their data business. And she's like, Devin, we're ready for that NASDAQ basic enterprise license. And I remember my heart skipped a beat, because it was $100,000 a month type of enterprise license that only a handful of firms out there would actually qualify for. And it had been like months since I had actually pitched this product, but it was because of the relationship that had been developed, and she was so it was kind of like getting like this inbound kind of like massive sale. And I think that some of these, Wade, I remember you telling me earlier with some of your business is like, it's not really like going out and like pitching your service. It's because of the relationships that you've built over 50 plus years being in the business, right? And that is currency. Like your relationships in your business, the relationships in all of these businesses, these relationships are currency. And so, I think that's kind of the one, that's the biggest kind of point that I wanted to kind of like end with, is just being able to, leverage these, super valuable relationships that you all are building, the new ones that you'll create and going forward. But maybe just lastly, anyone have any stories that they want to share about when I was kind of preparing for this, I was thinking like, I'm not going to come in here and tell these grown men and women like how to sell and whatnot. But if there's maybe a nugget or something that is either a refresher or something that you could take with you into the field. I hope this was beneficial, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to meet y'all, and looking forward to the rest of the day. So appreciate it. Thanks for your time.